We've had a decent level of diplomacy with South Africa. There are some challenges, but you want people in each embassy who can actually facilitate a relationship. And these remarks were unacceptable to the United States. That is, I think, at the very least, what we should expect is a standard of some respect, basic, low-level respect, if you're in a position that is going to help facilitate any kind of diplomatic relationship with another country. This particular individual certainly didn't meet that standard. The unjust land expropriation law, as well as its growing relationship with countries like Russia and Iran, that's what prompted the serious review of our South Africa policy, which continues to be underway.
We smiled through the lies about the white genocide. We smiled through the taking away of $8 billion worth of aid and so forth.
Elon Musk, the world's richest man, who was born in South Africa, accused the government in South Africa of persecuting the white Afrikaner population.
That's an untruth.
Right. Is it exacerbating tensions in South Africa? And do you view this as interference in domestic affairs?
Absolutely. That's a breach of diplomacy. Everyone knows that South Africa's white Afrikaner community is...
Guys, so Donald Trump has been able to gather some really serious team around him to work for this next 4 years he's going to be president, man. This State Department spokesperson, Tammy Bruce, I just actually discovered her today. You know, even the way she looks, you can see she's really... she doesn't look like somebody who you just want to, mess around with. But anyway, in this video here, she's actually making some very serious statements about, South Africa. And one of the reasons, actually giving reasons from the perspective of the US. I know Marco Rubio had actually explained a little bit on X and all that. But I think for me, this is kind of like the first explication by a South African, by a US official on why, South African ambassador, former South African ambassador Ibrahim Rasul was actually expelled from the US as a persona non grata. And she makes a really interesting statement for me, which I think is really crucial, about South Africa. And she says, one of the things she actually says, I'll be playing the description very soon. One of the things she actually says anyway is the fact that South Africa somehow, this is her words now, she says that this whole thing is a matter of a nation that is not interested in a safe, prosperous America or a safe world. All right, so this is the framing that South Africa actually has in, I think, US foreign policy. And I think this is because of its alignment, that despite the fact that South Africa says it is not aligned, the US have had problems with its alignment with Iran and countries like Russia. And so because of that, they feel that South Africa has actually been making a statement arguing that, probably it might, or this is the US's interpretation of South Africa's alignment to Iran and Russia, that it is not interested in the prosperity of the US and the safe world. And because of that, I'm suspecting that, South Africa's AGOA license might go really soon. But anyway, before I play Tammy Bruce's speech in her explanation on why Ibrahim Rasul was actually expelled as persona non grata, I found this video that was made by First Post. Guys, these guys in Iran, they're really serious with what they're doing anyway. So there's this video made by this First Post, reporter about, Iran just released a video recently, I think, showing it an underground arsenal of weapons that is really, for me, was really scary as well. And for South Africa also to be seen by the US to have a certain kind of like relationship with Iran that it doesn't feel comfortable with, and especially in light of this video I'm going to play now, then I think, South Africa and the US, I really don't know how that relationship will be repaired. But let's quickly listen to this video, and really what Iran might be up to is, for me, not yet clear. But anyway, let's quickly listen, and I'll be back for some other thoughts.
Trump is not the only one flexing his military, though. Iran, too, is joining the party. Tehran has released a new video. And what is it about? An underground city loaded with missiles. This is an 85-second video. It was released by the Iranian state media. It shows two generals inspecting weapons, and all of this is happening underground. But there's more than what meets the eye. Let's start with the two generals. They aren't your ordinary commanders. One of them is General Mohammad Hossein Bagheri. He is the chief of staff of Iran's armed forces. Beside him is General Amir Ali Haji Zadeh. He is the IRGC aerospace chief. He also commands the rockets and missile forces. The IRGC stands for Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. It's not like the Iranian army. This group only defends the Islamic regime and its supreme leader. That's what the IRGC is for. It's very powerful. Now, both these generals are responsible for Tehran's long-range weapons. Clearly, they are very important. The video begins with them riding in an open jeep. They drive through the tunnels, which are packed with hundreds of missiles. Then they step down. They salute pictures of Iran's supreme leader and walk over an Israeli flag. Let me unpack the video a little further for you. Iran is sending a message here that its attack platforms are ready. Almost all of Iran's strategic weapons were on display here. This includes the Ghadar and Qasim missiles. Both of these were used to strike Israel in October last year. The tunnels were also lined with warheads and hundreds of rockets. Clearly, it's a signal. Tehran is ready for any escalation. And the Iranian generals did not mince any words. They said Iran will make a new missile city every week. Listen to this.
If we start today, we will unveil a new missile city every week. The project will continue for the next 2 years.
A new missile city every week. That's what Iran wants. But it won't be easy. Underground bases require a lot of funds, a lot of manpower, a lot of space, and a lot of time. Iran already has a few, at least 3 that we know of, 3 such cities. The IRGC revealed its first underground base in 2020. That was in western Iran. The other 2 bases are slightly more north, and now Iran has a 4th underground facility. The location remains a secret, but the revealing comes at an important time. Tensions in the region are at an all-time high. Tehran is facing threats from Washington. Trump has given a 2-month deadline for a new deal. A new nuclear deal. Like I said, Trump scrapped the first nuclear deal in his first term. He wants a new one now. He also wants Iran to stop supporting its proxies. He wants to shut the tap for Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. Here's what he said.
You have Hamas, you have Hezbollah, you have the Houthis, you got a lot of stuff going on with Iran. And we sent a letter to Iran. You're going to have to be speaking to us one way or the other pretty soon because we can't let this happen.
Yes, so you could see now, the US, this is probably why the US has been really wary about its relationship with South Africa and not fully understanding, where South Africa lies, although South Africa is supposed to be a non-aligned state, all right? So this actually, I think, is one of the things Tammy Bruce explains here in this video. Let's watch her explanation on why Rasul was expelled from the US.
Thanks. Can I go back to South Africa, the ambassador?
Sure.
The secretary, of course, had his ex posted on Friday. Could you explain a little bit the reasons? It's quite an extraordinary step. I was looking back, if I'm not mistaken, even in the height of tensions with Russia, there was no expulsion of the ambassador and no PNG there. What is it? I mean, essentially this was remarks that the ambassador made at a think tank or at a conference that were critical. What I'm getting is, should other ambassadors be on alert? Can they not criticize President Trump without fear of being expelled?
Well, I think it's not about criticism. This was the equation of the president and the country with white supremacy. It was an allegation that casts such an awful light on the nature of the country, on individuals. It is. I mean, if we don't have a standard about the nature of someone who is in this country, who is supposed to be a diplomat to help facilitate the relationship between two countries, and that this is the standard of it, we deserve better. We've had a decent level of diplomacy with South Africa. There are some challenges, but you want people in each embassy who can actually facilitate a relationship. And these remarks were unacceptable to the United States, not just to the president, but to every American. They were pretty much obscene when it came to the nature of what was alleged. So that is, I think, at the very least, what we should expect is a standard of some respect, basic low-level respect, if you're in a position that is going to help facilitate any kind of diplomatic relationship with another country. This particular individual certainly didn't meet that standard, and it is a message to people of what America expects, what the president expects, what the Secretary of State expects, what this whole administration expects when it comes to treatment of the nation itself and as a result of the people in this country. And so that's why it was done.
Could you just expand on that? South Africa today said that it wants to have a better relationship with the United States. Are you open to that? I mean, there's been the Secretary of State away from the G20. Are you of the view that South Africa can repair the relationship despite the criticism that's come from this building?
Well, I think both the President and the Secretary of State have made it clear what the problems are and what they have an issue with when it comes to South Africa. The unjust land expropriation law, as well as its growing relationship with countries like Russia and Iran. That's what prompted the serious review of our South Africa policy, which continues to be underway. They have taken also, the South African government, aggressive positions toward the United States and its allies, including accusing Israel, not Hamas, of genocide in the International Court of Justice, and reinvigorating its relationship with Iran to develop commercial, military, and nuclear arrangements. So this isn't one just of demeanor or decorum, however they add into it. This is a matter of a nation that is, we've again made it very clear, taking steps that are not in the best interest of providing a safe, secure, more prosperous America, let alone world, when it comes to the decisions they're making. So all of this is under review, but obviously part of it is, within the diplomacy of it, is to encourage a change in policy and posture. Of course that would be the point. The point is to encourage a change. What I've seen with the trips we've made with the diplomatic adventures, of course, as well as the G7 summit in Canada, is the nature of the Secretary of State is to make things better for people. It is not to punish or to target people or countries. It's the nature of changing policy and creating better environments for all of us. And I've seen that in motion in every dynamic. And that's the case here with South Africa as well.
Now, this video, Ibrahim Rasul was actually interviewed by DW News, and he's actually giving his own insight into the reasons why he thinks that he was expelled by the US, arguing that, this whole thing about his expulsion predates him, but that the US has actually had South Africa in its kind of like negative side of its foreign policy because of its ICJ case for Israel, because of its I think also South Africa's alignment with Russia, also then with the whole Afrikaner white genocide issue that Afri Forum took to the US to complain and all that. So this is his own response to this whole thing, and I'll really admonish you guys to watch till the end, because I think that whoever the next pick President Ramaphosa would pick to replace Ibrahim Rasool, I think it will be sensitive, because Ibrahim Rasool actually advises that South Africa should not back down, and South Africa should still try to pick an ambassador who would uphold the values of Ubuntu, all right? And, in that light, I really don't know if probably President Ramaphosa will want to pick somebody that might be of a different, values from Ibrahim Rasool, and how America will respond to the next ambassador to the US is something that we'll keep on watching, because we know that right now President Trump has actually nominated this Bozell III, who is actually argued to be a firm or probably a really interested personality in Israeli affairs, or he's really interested in Israel and probably a supporter of Israel. And so how that whole thing will play out is something I don't know. But let's quickly watch this interview on DW News with Ibrahim Rasul. Really interesting questions this reporter from DW News asked him, and his thoughts on how and why he thinks he was, expelled. And I think this is really important for every South African or lovers of South Africa to really understand what's really coming, so that you understand how to prepare in light of a certain kind of change or switch in the relation between South Africa and the United States.
Ambassador Rasool, welcome to DW News Africa. Were the remarks you made on that webinar misinterpreted by the Trump administration? Do you think that the US President Donald Trump is a white supremacist? That is what the administration says you said.
I think the truth is that I analyzed from a South African perspective to a South African audience. I analyzed the political phenomenon so that we can understand the phenomenon of supremacy, rather than accusing a person or a personality of being a supremacist. But if the shoe fits, the shoe fits. What I was linking up was the fact that here was a vice president of that phenomenon coming to Germany and speaking to the Alternative für Deutschland. Here was Elon Musk stirring up support for Reform UK with Nigel Farage, and all of this coming from a history in which South Africans have understood what white supremacism was explaining to South Africans, if you want to understand how we will deal with this, you must go back to our history of dealing with supremacism.
Right, but I still want you to answer the question and not give me a diplomatic answer. Do you think that the United States president is a white supremacist?
I think that there are signs of supremacism that are clearly there. It's being exported around the world, and I think picking on South Africa particularly, on people of other colors, other religions and so forth, begins to say that maybe if it begins to smell like it, look like it, and they react to it, then maybe we are seeing the signs, the early signs of that work.
Ambassador, it is highly unusual for a senior diplomat to be expelled from the US in the way that you were. Do you think that there is more to your expulsion by the Trump administration?
Look, there's been a campaign from the day that I've been announced. It's been the work that APAC has been doing in the US, that a particular blogger from San Francisco or Los Angeles who wanted to be the ambassador of the US to South Africa has been driving. I think that they were very angry when I was credentialed by President Biden. So all of that begins to say that the issue has been not about the ambassador. The issue has been about how South Africa had taken Israel to the International Court of Justice. It's how South Africa has maintained its non-alignment in the world. It was South Africa's perceived position in BRICS. And I think it is South Africa's leadership in the G20. So I don't take this personally. I think that they found a pretext to deal with me. But I think that at the end of the day, it's a relationship issue between South Africa and the United States.
I want to pick up on the point you're making about the case that South Africa has at the International Court of Justice as it pertains to Israel and the case about genocide. But you're talking about the personal element there. And I'll tell our audience that you've served as South Africa's ambassador to the United States. This is 2010 to 2015 when Barack Obama was president. But when Cyril Ramaphosa said that this is part of the reason he was reappointing you to the role now, many in South Africa questioned the wisdom of that decision, with some predicting it would end badly. Now, given how things have played out, were the critics right?
I think that there was very clearly a set of networks that they feared I would be able to utilize to get the relationship back on track. There were clearly people who did not want the relationship back on track. I'm not the reason that they
people
did
in
not
South
even
Africa?
I think it's a very few in South Africa who believed that there would be a problem. I think that they were plugged in, and that's why, for example, you had delegations coming over to agitate about it. You had this regular attack on me. But at the end of the day, it was me or it would have been someone else. They would have tried to sanction the ANC leadership. They kicked us out of PEPFAR. They kicked us out of USAID funding. That's nothing to do with me. That had been pre-planned. That was part of the executive orders from day one. So I think that they would like to personalize it, but I think that they're missing the point of the bigger punishment that South Africa has been subjected to.
But then, Ambassador, did you hand it to them because political analysts, some of them at least, feel that your comments were ill-considered and undiplomatic? Did you essentially break the diplomatic code?
I don't think that any diplomatic code was broken. I think if you look at what some of Mr. Trump's inner circle said about him, about the robustness of Mr. Trump's own engagement, analyzing a political phenomenon so that your country can fit in with the requirements of that is the job of an ambassador. And so we smiled through the lies about the white genocide. We smiled through the taking away of 8 billion worth of aid and so forth. We used all the conventional diplomacy, but when we needed to understand it and we needed to say, see it within this framework, this phenomenon that is at work, then I think all the sensitivities were riled up. I don't think that the sensitivities about what I said had anything to do with the actions that were already taken against South Africa and the partialness that was displayed towards a small, very beneficial white community in South Africa.
Yeah, and we will talk about that community, but I just, one more follow-up on this point, because you were declared persona non grata by the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. You said that you wear that as a badge of honor. You talked about the role of an ambassador. There has to be the question asked there, if you potentially might have jeopardized South Africa's relations with a key trading partner that is the United States.
No, I think that, as I pointed out to you, there were many things in the relationship already before I had arrived. 211 senators had said, and Congress members, take them out of the African Growth and Opportunities Act. Already positions were being laid, sanction the leaders of the ANC. Already all of those things were in place. What I was able to do was actually to reduce the tensions with particular parties, with particular people that I have known, with think tanks, and explain South Africa. I think the success of what I was achieving was more frightening than my presence in Washington, D.C.
Frightening to who, Ambassador? To some of the lobbyists that we saw from South Africa going to the White House to make their case?
Absolutely frightening to some of those people, because they did not want and they did not expect the kind of success and traction that we were able to get right in the USA. And so I feel, when I say it's a badge of honor, it is not that I failed. It is that I think we did shake up the assumption that South Africa would roll over and die and allow itself to be bullied.
Ambassador Rasool, one of the things you mentioned was, of course, South Africa's foreign policy as it pertains to Palestine. Now, President Trump has been critical of South Africa's stance on the Israel-Hamas conflicts, including South Africa's decision to accuse Israel of committing genocide in Gaza, that case at the International Court of Justice. Has South Africa been under pressure to withdraw that case from the US?
It's been a daily pressure from before we even considered it. It's been heightened as each step went by its way. So, you know, as a South African, when you've lived through the Sharpeville massacre, the Soweto massacre, and everything tells you that what are the signs of a massacre and what are the road to a genocide, then South Africa acts on the very finest principles that people like Nelson Mandela taught us. And so we knew that that was going to be a sticky point, but we also knew that that was a non-negotiable in our relationship with the United States of America. And I think that if you do get declared persona non grata for standing for that, not yielding to it, not negotiating it, but saying this is a non-negotiable, let's negotiate everything else. And you stand by that, then I think South Africa is ready to understand the implications of its decision. And if we were not in the ICJ, I think the impunity against the Palestinians would be worse.
So am I reading you correctly that the position in Pretoria will be to stick with that case, even if the pressure is amped up, and if AGOA, this very important trading arrangement with the United States, is potentially on the line for South Africa?
I think South Africans have a capacity for sacrifice on fundamental human rights. That's our history. We have been through similar oppressions. We can see it when it happens elsewhere. And so South Africans, black South Africans, called for sanctions against the country, even if it hurt us during the apartheid years. And so I think it's not that we are suicidal. It is that South Africans value their values more than sometimes their interests. And that's what we've got to teach the world, the absolute supremacy of our values.
Right.
We can manage our interests, but we cannot negotiate away the values that South Africa stands for.
The US President Donald Trump, he's just nominated a new US ambassador to South Africa, Leo Brent Bozell. He is described as a supporter of Israel. What does that say to you, at least, about how the US administration views the US's relations with South Africa?
Look, I think that clearly it's the Israel issue. And so maybe that is, I don't know the ambassador personally, that is, or the designate ambassador. I don't know him personally, so it's too early to prejudge him. I won't do to him what they did to me. And secondly, I think that what we need to understand is it is the US's prerogative to come and fight for their issues here, just like it was my prerogative to defend my country there. And so that is going to be an interesting way to go forward. But I think that we must understand that we will not allow untruths, misrepresentations, and post-fact issues to muddy the waters of our relationship. We
on
will
that
fight for
point,
this relationship.
Ambassador, on the point of untruths, President Donald Trump and Elon Musk, the world's richest man, who was born in South Africa, accused the government in South Africa of persecuting the white Afrikaner population.
That's an untruth.
Right. Is it exacerbating tensions in South Africa? And do you view this as interference in domestic affairs?
Absolutely. That's a breach of diplomacy. You see, when you interfere in the internal affairs of South Africa, but call it race baiting when we describe the phenomenon of supremacy. And so I want to really say that everyone knows that South Africa's white Afrikaner community is not an oppressed community when 7% own 72% of the land. No land is being expropriated. There is no genocide. That is a fact. Europe understands it like that. Asia understands it. South America understands it. Most Americans understand it like that, except the administration.